The year was around 1600 BCE. A man named Tang stood at the edge of his territory, watching refugees stream in from the Xia heartland. They came with accounts of a king who had turned the palace into a pleasure garden while the people starved. Accounts of forced labor, accounts of punishments so brutal that entire families fled rather than serve. Tang had a choice. Option A, close the borders, turn away the refugees, pretend he didn't see what was happening across the river. Stay safe, stay rich, stay alive. Option B, take in the refugees, which would infuriate King Jie. Build a coalition, which could be seen as treason. Challenge a dynasty, which, by the way, no one had ever successfully done before. Oh, and if he failed, his entire family would be executed, probably tortured first. Their names erased from history, so no pressure. He chose rebellion. And in doing so, he invented something more dangerous than any army, the idea that kings could be fired. If Yu the Great created the first dynasty, then King Tang was the first man to prove that a dynasty could fall. But let's rewind. How did it come to this? The Xia dynasty, the one Yu the Great founded with flood channels and sacrifice, had been in power for centuries. And like most dynasties, it didn't collapse overnight. It rotted from the inside. By Tang's time, the rot had a name, King Jie. Now, you've probably met a King Jie before. Not literally, hopefully, but you know the type. The boss who thinks rules are for other people. The guy who confuses power with permission. Legend paints Jie as that kind of ruler, turned up to nightmare levels. Picture this. King Jie is hosting a party. He's built a pool, not with water, but with wine. Enough wine to sail a boat across. And the entertainment? He'd throw prisoners into the pool and watch them drown. While they thrashed and screamed, musicians played cheerful music. Guests clapped. Jie laughed. It wasn't an execution, it was a show. Now, did this actually happen? Maybe. Maybe not. But here's the thing. People believed it could. And in politics, what people believe is often more dangerous than what's true, because the Xia world wasn't a modern nation-state. It was a loose network of tribes and regional lords held together by ritual, tribute, and the royal family's aura. When that aura cracked, everything started to wobble. Tang wasn't a prince of the Xia. He was the leader of the Shang, one of the strongest clans on the edges of Xia influence. The Shang had land, armies, and wealth. But Tang's real weapon wasn't a spear. It was an image. There's a story, maybe legend, maybe propaganda, that shows how that image was built. One day, Tang was out hunting when he saw a peasant setting up nets in the forest. But the peasant wasn't setting one or two traps. He was blocking every escape route, north, south, east, west. The animals had nowhere to go. Tang stopped him and said, "Leave 3 sides open, let the animals choose their own fate." It was a small gesture, but word spread fast. If Tang showed mercy even to animals, what would he do for people? Now, here's where it gets interesting. Some historians think Tang staged this whole thing. Think about it. He just happens to go hunting at the perfect moment. A peasant just happens to be setting traps in the most excessive way possible, and witnesses just happen to be there to spread the story. It's almost too perfect, too political. But you know what? It doesn't matter if it was staged. What matters is that it worked. Because while Jia was drowning people in wine pools, Tang was saving animals. The PR war was over before the real war even started. Tang understood something modern politicians still struggle with. Perception beats reality every single time. And then came the long game. Tang didn't rush to war, he waited for the Xia to destroy themselves. While King Jia demanded brutal taxes, Tang lowered them in Shang territory. While Jie executed dissenting nobles, Tang welcomed refugees. Entire villages began moving into Shang lands. While Jie hoarded grain, Tang opened his storehouses during famines. One by one, the tribes on the periphery stopped sending tribute to the Xia capital. They started looking toward Tang. He didn't build an army first, he built a reputation. And in the ancient world, reputation was just as dangerous as swords. But reputation alone doesn't topple a dynasty. You need a justification, something that makes rebellion feel like duty instead of crime. So Tang's camp rolled out a brilliant idea, the mandate of heaven. Here was the new logic. Heaven didn't care about bloodlines, heaven cared about results. If a king brought prosperity, heaven approved. If a king brought chaos, heaven withdrew approval. And if approval was withdrawn, a virtuous leader could replace him. Tang didn't reject divine authority, he hacked it. He didn't attack monarchy, he argued that King Jia had violated the terms. The mandate of heaven became the ultimate political loophole. Then came the showdown. Ming Tao. On paper, Tang was outmatched. The Xia army was larger and fighting on home ground. Before the battle, Tang made a promise. I am not here to conquer you. I am here to free you from a tyrant. Lay down your weapons and you will live. Switch sides and you will be rewarded. It was a gamble, a huge gamble. If Jia's soldiers stayed loyal, Tang was dead. But when the armies clashed, something extraordinary happened. Entire Xia units turned their spears around. They didn't retreat, they joined Tang. King Jia fled into exile, dying far from the capital he once ruled. And the dynasty Yu the Great had founded finally came to an end. Now came the real test. Tang could have looted the palace, executed the old nobles, and replaced everyone with his own people. That was the normal script of conquest, but Tang chose a different performance. He refused to live in Jia's palace, calling it a monument to corruption. He kept many Xia officials in place, choosing stability over chaos, and he performed grand rituals, publicly reporting his victory to heaven. Was it real humility or brilliant political theater? Probably both. Later historians would say it simply, heaven fired the Xia and hired the Shang. Tang didn't just win a war, he created a precedent. And precedents are dangerous things. Because if one dynasty can fall, then every dynasty can fall. Tang didn't discover a law of nature, he invented a political myth. And for the next 4,000 years, that myth would be more powerful than any army. We don't say heaven withdrew its mandate anymore. We say the people have spoken. But maybe that's just another story we tell ourselves about power. Tang figured that out 3,600 years ago. And whether we admit it or not, we're still living in the world he invented.